Hey parents, thanks for tuning in to this parenting webinar. You are truly in for a treat because you're going to be receiving proven and effective strategies of how to deal with the challenges that you have been facing currently within your home. Issues like your children not respecting your authority, talking back, maybe even walking away while you're speaking to them, and even barriers you've been facing. If it's been seeming like it's getting harder and harder for you to get a grip on managing your home and even handling the behaviors that you've been seeing from your children, maybe they're acting out, you're going to be getting some help today on how to handle some of those very problems. So, today you will learn the importance of your role as a parent, how to begin owning your role now, how to identify if you have lost confidence, how to build back your confidence as the leader of your home, and how to regain control of your household. The importance of your role. As a parent, you are essential to the success and overall health of the family that you are raising. That is why being sure of the role that you play and the duties you must fulfill in order to lead your family must be understood and owned by you, right? So, parents, I really want you to understand your importance. That's one thing I really want to start off by pointing out is I want you to understand your importance and your significance as it relates to the success of your family. Your full involvement is so crucial. Your full cooperation of agreeing to accept all of the responsibilities that are expected of you as a parent is essential, right? For your family to properly be nurtured and guided, right? It's so important for you to own that, own your responsibilities. And we'll get into what those responsibilities are a little further. How to begin owning your role. So, steps to begin owning your role are these three things. Take ownership of your responsibility to your family, right? So let's stop right there and let's look at the responsibilities that we have as parents, right? So we know that we have to provide a safe living environment for our children. We have to protect our children from abuse and danger. If you owe child support for your child, you need to pay that, right? You need to make sure your child gets that child support so that they can get what they need, right? And look into making sure that the money that you are sending them is being used for their care, right? We also have to discipline our children, right? We have to invest in our children's education. That doesn't only mean that we're helping to pay for college, but if they're having trouble with school or need support in any way, as far as their education goes, whether you're getting a tutor or anything like that, or even if you are helping your child with their homework or anything like that, right? We're responsible for spending time with our children, right? Giving them that quality time. We're also responsible for their spiritual growth. So it's not on a pastor or anyone at your church to make sure that they pour into your child, but it's our responsibility as parents to make sure that our children are even spiritually strong, right? I am a Christian coach, right? And so I don't only work with Christians. All of my clients are not Christians, but that is my main audience, right? So I do need you to know that your responsibilities go beyond just natural things that you can see, but also spiritual things, right? Being a spiritual support to your child. And if you see that your child needs any assistance further than what you can give them, then reaching out to your pastor or a counselor within the church or even a family counselor or something like that to make sure that your child is healthy mentally, spiritually, right? Even naturally, right? We need to take our children to the doctor, to the dentist to make sure that their body is healthy. We always want our children to feel secure and safe with us. So I just wanted to touch on some of those responsibilities so that we can really just look at ourselves and see if we are providing these things for our family. Because a lot of times as parents, we can get burned out, right? With all of the responsibilities and duties that we have as individuals, right? At our jobs or things that we have to work on ourselves outside of our family. So then when we come home and we have to deal with issues from our children, misbehaving or problems with bills or other issues within the home that come up, we many times are just so tired. We can find ourselves getting so overwhelmed that we neglect taking care of those responsibilities, right? And supporting our families the way that they need to be supported. So that's why I wanted to go over the responsibilities of a parent so that we can really evaluate ourselves. Acknowledge that you are the leader of your home. So we have to acknowledge that we are the leaders of our home, right? There are so many parents today that are allowing their children to lead them, and they themselves are not leading the household. So when that begins to happen, you're going to see a lot of disrespect from your child because they don't respect the role that you have. They're going to tell you what they're going to eat for dinner, right? They're going to tell you what they're going to wear. You don't tell me what I'm going to wear. I tell you what I'm going to wear, mom, right? Even though you're paying for my clothes, you have no say so on what I'm going to wear because I'm in control, right? So when you start to run into these kind of problems where you're paying the bills, you're providing for your child, but they feel like they can turn around and tell you what they are and what they are not going to do, then I would say that you should ask yourself, have I acknowledged that I am the leader of my home, right? Let's use, for an example, a CEO of a company. That CEO is not going to allow an employee to come and tell them how to run their company, right? Or they're not going to allow them to come and change any rules that they have set for their company because that CEO is sure of themselves and they know, hey, I'm the one that started this company. I'm the one that hired you, right? I'm the one that's in control. I'm the one that puts leadership in position. The managers and team leads and anyone that I choose to lead this company, I'm above all of that. So there's no way that they're going to allow an employee to come in and challenge them. And there's no way that that CEO is going to allow anyone to come in and make changes without their permission, right? Because they know who they are, right? I'm the CEO of this company, right? So we have to know as parents, we can't allow our children to come in the house and tell us what to do, right? And then they tell us what they're going to do. If you are seeing this, if you are seeing this within your home, you've got to get control of this because things are out of order. If you're seeing this within your home, right? You have to get on top of this very quickly, right? Immediately before it gets even worse, right? Work on forming structure within your family routine. So, when I'm speaking about forming structure, I'm also speaking about establishing order as well, right? So, when you establish order in your home, your children understand that you're the leader, right? Even if you have to sit them down and say, hey, you know what? I need to talk to you, especially if you have multiple children. I need you guys to know that when I say this, I mean this and I need it to be done. Or when your father says that or this, we need you to do it, right? If you have a question, you can ask, but we need you to do what we're asking you to do, right? Don't talk back, don't roll your eyes, right? Also, when I speak about structure, it's up to you as a parent to begin to set up a daily routine that you want for your family, right? And the reason why it's so important for you to establish or begin establishing a daily routine for your family is because it's going to provide structure for your children. Children automatically begin to feel more secure when they're in an environment that's controlled. So even though they naturally want to rebel at times because they want to challenge your authority, you have to be sure of your role, right? So I want you to take some time and think about a daily routine that you would like for your children. You can start off simple. Do you want them to get up in the morning, brush their teeth, comb their hair, get ready for school, put on their school clothes? Then you can write that down for their morning routine, whatever it is that you need them to do, right? Even after school, what do you want them to do after school? Do you want them to come in and do their homework? Are you going to allow them to get a snack before school time? When do you want them to do chores, right? Do you have them do chores? And if you don't, then I would really encourage you to begin having your children do chores, right? Even if they're as young as 7 years old, 6 years old, they can do something. They can help pick up toys, pick up trash and throw it away. They can do different things, right? They can sweep the floor, right? There's so many different things that your children can help with, but it's going to help them to be able to have more of a structure in their day, right? And when you're providing structure for your family, there's less chaos because everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone knows what's expected of them. And if they need help, because maybe they forgot what to do and how to do it, go ahead and reteach if you have to, right? Let's say your child says, well, I forgot what you want me to do with the dishes after I wash them. Do I dry them and put them away, or do I let them dry on the dish rack? They may come to you with different questions, and just take time and be patient with your children, but be consistent in teaching them what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. And then lastly, so that you don't always have to repeat yourself every day on what you want your child to do. And I actually do this myself as well. I have a board, right, that I have set up in my kitchen. That's where I've chosen to put my board that has a list of all of the duties that I want my children to do and the daily routine that I want for them to do, from a morning routine, a after school routine, and a night routine, right? I have this board. It's a whiteboard that I've put in my kitchen. And what that does for me is it helps me to be able to provide a place where my children can go and find out all that they need to do for that day, right? We've had this board for a really long time. So when I tell them in the morning, hey, it's time to do your morning schedule, they already know what to do. In fact, most of the time, I don't even have to say it's time to do your morning schedule because they already are doing their morning schedule, right? And if they skip something on their morning schedule, whether it's brushing their teeth or making up their bed, then I usually remind them of that, right? Or I withhold something like TV time or something like that until they get that thing done, if I see that it's not done, right? So this kind of takes the guessing out of what the day is going to look like when it comes to the children, when you can lay out a plan for your child and they can get in a routine of how to take care of themselves and also how to help contribute to taking care of the household, right? This is also going to help them to begin to learn how to respect you when they can see that you can provide them with a routine, right? You forming structure for your family will also help you to establish yourself as that leader in the home, right? Begin owning your role by understanding these terms. Ownership, the act or state of possessing something, taking responsibility for it. So that's what we've been talking about. You owning your role, right? You being able to say, hey, you know what? If something's going on in my household, if something's going on with my child, maybe they're acting out at school or they have a bad attitude with me and their other parent, or they're continually fighting their sibling or getting in trouble at school for fighting or anything like that. Hey, I'm the parent. I'm going to have to take control of this, right? I'm owning this. Acknowledge and recognize the fact or importance of. We have to acknowledge our importance. We have to acknowledge the importance of our involvement, right? In raising our children, in being hands on with them, right? Leadership, the ability of a parent to influence and guide their family. So we touched on that a little earlier in the slide before when I spoke to you about how important it was to set up a plan for your family, right? A daily routine that they can follow. This is also going to help guide your family, which will also help them to learn how to respect you, right? And it will strengthen you as you operate within your parenting role. It will help you to gain the confidence back that you may have lost along the way. Have you lost your confidence? We're going to focus on these three different areas here, okay? First, we're going to look at correction. Do you hesitate or avoid altogether correcting your child? Is correcting your child uncomfortable to you? So, this is where we really have to do a lot of self evaluation, right? Because a lot of times as parents, we can feel like we're doing a pretty good job raising our children. But I really wanted to touch on these three different areas within parenting because this really helps you to have a solid foundation when you can confidently correct your child, discipline them, and give them instruction, right? But when you avoid correcting your child, then you're not providing your child with what they actually need, right? Why is it important to correct your child? Well, when we correct our children, we show them a better way of doing something. When we correct our children, we're letting them know what they had done was wrong. And then we should take some time and tell them why what they did was wrong, right? A lot of times we as parents hesitate to correct our children for many different reasons. We may not want them to be angry with us. That's a really big one, right? A lot of parents, they're more concerned about being their child's friend, right? More concerned about their child liking them more than they are being a parent to them, right? Because we should never be uncomfortable when we're correcting our children. I don't care what they're doing. They can be stomping their feet, they can be giving you a really mean look, they could be folding their arms, they could be ignoring you and looking around the room. We should never feel insecure when we're giving correction. We should never feel uncomfortable or embarrassed that we're giving our child correction. If they need correction, then they need to be corrected. If you need to bring something to their attention that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, then you as the parent, you should not feel bad about that, right? And we definitely should not hesitate to bring that correction. Because at the end of the day, we really need to understand that we're mainly responsible for leading our children in the right direction. For instance, if they have a bad attitude, right, with you, don't you think they can turn around and have a bad attitude with their teacher, right? But if you don't condone that attitude from them at home and you don't tolerate it, right, you say, okay, hold on. I need you to change your tone while you're talking to me. I'm your mother, or I'm your father, or I'm your grandmother. I need you to respect me, right? A lot of the times they're not going to want to listen to you, even when you tell them that. But that at least lets them know, hey, you know what? I can't just talk to mom or dad or grandpa or grandma or my guardian any way that I want to. I have to show respect to them. And many times we have to stop and teach our children why it's important that they respect us as their parent, or why they have respect for authorities, right? Because if they can't respect you, then it's going to be really hard for them to respect their PE coach, their basketball coach, or their teacher at school, or even the principal, right? If our children lack correction from us and we're afraid to correct them, then we're basically leaving them to themselves, right? We're not helping them, we're actually hurting them. Discipline. Do you allow your child to get away with being rude or disobedient and run away from any form of discipline, right? Do you run away from discipline even some of the time? And I've been there myself, to where I know my child needs to be disciplined, but I really don't want to bring discipline on them, right? Because I just want them to listen. I just want them to be obedient. I don't want them to continue to have to get in trouble, right? So, as a parent, you shouldn't be excited if you have to bring discipline on your child. Like if you're going to spank them or you're going to put them on punishment, this shouldn't excite you. You shouldn't just love to put your children on punishment. You shouldn't just look forward to, spanking your child like it's some fun thing to do. But it's a part of you operating within your role as a parent, right? So we should never be afraid as parents or guardians to correct our children or discipline them, right? Do you feel insecure when you are giving your child instructions on how to do something? So we don't want to refrain from instructing our children if we see that they can go about something better, right? So this is an example. Remember earlier when I was speaking to you about setting up a daily routine for your children. So let's say you've given one of your children a chore, right? Maybe their chore is doing dishes, for example. So if your child is just rinsing off the dishes and not washing them with soap and water and drying them properly and putting them away, or maybe you want them to just scrape off the food off of the dishes and rinse them off a little bit and then put them in the dishwasher, right? However, you've instructed your child to take care of the dishes, then they need to follow that step, right? If their chore is to take care of the dishes and you do have a dishwasher, they're really not washing the dishes. They're just getting the food off so that they can put the dishes inside of the dishwasher. So you might want to give them a little bit more to do than just that. Maybe they can clear off the counter and be responsible for making sure that it's clean, right? That it's wiped off. Maybe they can be responsible for sweeping the kitchen as well, right? Maybe you can put them on kitchen duty. So I just wanted to interject that because there are a lot of parents out there who actually do not have their children do chores and they don't know how to give their children chores, right? I've had to coach parents in that area as well. So if there's anyone watching me who still has not given their children any chores or responsibilities in the house, or you've just began doing that, but you're still a little unsure on how to go about it, you don't want to put too much on your child to where it's overwhelming for them, right? Because we still have to consider that they have schoolwork after school a lot of times, but you don't want to make the task so small that they're barely contributing to any of the work in the house, right? So I just wanted to add that in. So let's go back to the scenario of your child learning how to do dishes correctly, right? According to the way that you have taught them, right? So if you happen to walk by the kitchen or you come in to check on your children to make sure they're doing their chores, and you see your child in the kitchen barely doing the dishes, right? They're barely doing anything that you've told them to do. Ask them, do you remember how I told you to do that, right? And wait for their answer. They may say yes, they may say no. If they say no, show them again. If they say yes, then ask them, why aren't you doing what I asked you to do? This is going to help them to be accountable. This is going to help you to assert yourself again as the leader in your home to help you gain your confidence back, right? You don't want to just say, okay, and then walk away. No. If you see that your child is not doing what you have told them to do, then you make sure that they understand that that's not acceptable to you. You don't have to yell, you don't have to raise your voice, right? You don't have to be aggressive and go in there and grab the dish from them and say, "Get out of the way. You're not if you're not going to do it right, then I'll do it." No. You don't want to do their chores for them. You want to instruct them, right? And many times, especially when you're dealing with teenagers, they can have an attitude as if you're bothering them. So they can begin to have an attitude with you and show you through their body language, or maybe you just heard them, you know, sigh. Maybe their body language or their facial expression or even something that they've said has let you know that they don't want to deal with you. They don't want to be bothered with you at that time, right? Well, that's not your problem. Okay? So don't allow that to move you because a lot of the times as parents, especially when we get home from work, right, or we're tired and we're just trying to relax, even during the weekend, we can see something that our child is doing and they need direction, right? They need correction or they need instruction. And we don't want to take the time to really give that instruction, right? Because we're tired or because we're frustrated and we don't feel like dealing with them or dealing with their attitude, right? And sometimes we feel like our child is not even going to listen to us. So what's the point of saying anything if they're not going to listen? Well, yes, that's true. You can give an instruction to your child and they can choose to not listen to you. But then that's when you bring in discipline. So the reality is, if we teach our children that all they have to do is just get an attitude with us, and then it's going to cause us to not want to give them the instruction that they need. And on top of that, we're not going to bring any discipline to them because we just don't want to be bothered with exerting the energy to bring discipline, then what are we teaching our children? Then we're also not showing them the reality of things because the truth is, as your child starts to mature, they're going to want to work. Or you may tell them as the parent, I need you to get a job so you can begin helping to pay a bill in the house, just to teach them responsibility. And the reality is, when that child gets on their job, if they don't understand how to follow instructions, they're not going to be able to keep that job. If they don't understand that there's going to be discipline that can be brought if they don't follow those instructions, then they're not going to know what to do. They're going to think they can just come in to work anytime they want with any kind of attitude that they want, and everyone just has to deal with them, right? They're not going to be able to be properly trained on their job because we didn't provide them with the skills, the life skills that they needed while we were raising them, right? We didn't teach them respect. We didn't teach them how to pay attention to an authority if they're instructing you, right? We didn't bring discipline on them. So they're not used to discipline in their life. It's important that you begin gaining your confidence back so you can begin correcting your child. You can begin disciplining them. You can begin instructing them as well because they need this. They need these things now, and they'll also need them as they move on and mature in their life. So, this is how you begin to take back your confidence, parents. You want to teach your child when you see that they need guidance in a situation. So, when you see that your child is struggling with something, maybe they were in trouble, maybe they had a problem at school, maybe with a friend, or maybe they were playing outside with a neighbor and they had an issue with a child, go ahead and take some time to teach your child. Maybe you need to teach them how to resolve conflicts, right? Maybe they need to learn how to humble themselves, how to apologize, even if they don't feel like they were wrong, so that they can learn how to get along with people, right? You want to correct your child if they have done something wrong. Again, we spoke about this earlier. You want to make sure that you correct your child when you see that they've done something wrong. You don't want to overlook it. You don't want to make excuses for them. You want to correct them so that they don't begin to continue that behavior anymore, right? You want to steer them in the right direction. Then you also want to do this. You want to have a family meeting to talk about issues that you've been observing in your home. If there are serious issues or there are issues that you want to get a handle on before they grow into something bigger, right? If you need some help in how to do this, you can check out my videos here on my channel where I speak about how to find your voice and how to begin using and exercising your voice within your home. This is also going to help you in how to begin gaining back your confidence, right? Because you're going to be addressing issues within your home that you're seeing. You're going to be able to speak to your children about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and let them know your expectations. So, how to gain back your control? You want to be sure of yourself in what you're saying if you're instructing or correcting your child, right? You don't want to be afraid to correct your children. We should never be afraid. Don't allow your child to speak over you or ignore you when you're speaking to them. So look at this mother here in this picture. She is very sure of what she's saying, right? She's very confident. The child looks like she doesn't want to hear her mother, right? But her mother is not backing down. Or this might be her guardian. She's not backing down. You also want to have a stern and confident tone when you're speaking because you don't want to be intimidated while you're speaking to your child, right? Even if you have to take some time and write down what you want to speak to your children about, whether you're having a family meeting or even if you're just dealing with one individual child, you want to make sure that you know the things that you need to address with them so that you're sure about what you're saying, right? Make sure to set up rules of conduct and expectations for your children, like respect for one another and their parents, right? So you want to make sure you set those expectations for your children. You want to make sure that if they're breaking rules, if they're being disobedient, right? Even if they're showing that they don't want to listen to you while you're speaking to them. For instance, maybe they're playing with their cell phone or they're playing a game on their tablet and you are speaking to them, you're addressing an issue with them, and you're keeping eye contact with them, but they're not keeping eye contact with you, and they're making sure to ignore you or show you that they're ignoring you. You have to begin taking control in that situation and say, I need you to keep your eyes on me. You will not ignore me while I'm speaking to you. Give me that tablet or give me that phone. Or even if they don't have a tablet or a phone, you set the expectations for even that conversation, right? And you don't allow them to ignore you. You don't allow them to think that they can turn their back to you when you're speaking to them, or they can stare at the ceiling or whatever it is. And if they continue to choose to do these things, even though you've warned them, even though you've told them not to do it, then you have to start implementing discipline, right? Because we don't want to turn around and reward our children with video games and movies and snacks and taking them out to have fun when they don't want to be obedient to you. Because we're telling our child, you can disrespect me, you can treat me however you want, and you're going to get whatever you want, right? We're teaching our children. We are always teaching our children. So we're really teaching our children it's okay to disrespect me. It's okay to mistreat me, right? As your parent. And we don't want to teach our children that. So while gaining back control, parents, I want you to remember this. Look at this picture here, right? You see the word rules. So this slide is one of the most important slides of this webinar training. Why is that? Because if you don't set rules for your family to follow, then there's chaos, there is no order, right? Everyone is just doing whatever they want to do, however they want to do it. So I want to use a company as an example. Many times things having to do with work is something that us as parents can relate to right away. So let's say someone worked for a company that did not set rules, did not set boundaries. What kind of company do you think that would be, right? Can you imagine something like that? Can you imagine how crazy it would be to work for that company where people could just conduct themselves however they wanted to? There was no code of conduct. The one who was supposed to be the leader in charge of setting those rules and setting expectations and setting up order for that company, would you have much respect for that person if you see this is how they ran their company, right? Many of us could say no. If we knew of a company that was like that, to where they had no moral conduct, where everyone can do and say whatever they wanted to do, and all kind of things were going on within that company office, no one was really held to any expectations of even how they treated the customers and how they treated one another as peers, right? As colleagues, many people would be able to say, I wouldn't want to work for a company like that, and I wouldn't have very much respect for the leader of that company, right? Because anything goes. We don't want to be like that as parents. We don't want to neglect setting up rules and boundaries for our children because we need to establish ourselves as the leaders of our homes, right? Remember, this webinar was all about gaining back your confidence as you operate within your role, right? And I'm teaching you how to gain back your control that you have lost within your household, even if it's not in all areas, just in some areas, right? So I want you to remember to set up boundaries and house rules for your children to follow, right? You may want to write those rules down and maybe put them in a place where they can see them. A lot like when we were all growing up in preschool and kindergarten and first grade, and our teachers had written down on the board or printed out for us so we can know her standard, we could respect her rules, We knew how to conduct ourselves, even as young children, because our teacher, our leader, set expectations for us. Then you want to decide on and explain the consequences of disobeying those rules that you've set. So if you're married, go ahead and sit down with your spouse and decide on some consequences that you all agree on to give your children if they begin to break the rules that you've set, right? Then you want to learn follow through. If you see that your child keeps breaking your rules, it's time to bring consequences, right? So many times as parents, we are just so in love with our kids, especially the young ones, right? The toddlers and the preschoolers, because we think they're so cute. But something I want you to remember, parents, that though your toddlers might have the fattest little cheeks and or your preschooler or your elementary schooler might be the sweetest thing on earth to you, right? That's beautiful. You love your child. But I want you to understand this. When we say we love our families, when we say we love our children, loving your child is not giving them everything that they want because children don't know what's good for them. If our children just wanted to eat honey buns and chocolate bars and cookies all day long, we as the parent have to say, no, you can't do that. That is going to hurt you. We know the repercussions of our child continually eating unhealthy snacks or just snacking all day and not really having any food that's going to provide substance and nutrition for them, right? And so we can't just give in and say, well, they won't eat real food, so I have to give them chips. I have to give them cookies, right? No, we have to set boundaries, expectations. We have to have rules. So let's look at this scenario here. Let's say you have a 6-year old or a 10-year old, whatever age your child is. And I want you to see the importance of why you need to bring discipline, right? What it's going to teach them. So you have your 6-year old or your 8-year old. They don't have to be that particular age. That's just the age I'm throwing out. You tell them, okay, so I'm setting up a rule for you that in order for you to get a treat out of the cookie jar, I need you to wash your dish, dry your dish, put it away, clean up the area of where you were sitting, and then come and ask me if you can have a treat, right? Because you may not get a treat every day. If you tell your child that rule and you give them those steps that you need them to follow, then they should be able to remember that. Even if they're as young as 5 years old or 6 years old, they should be able to remember that rule after 2 weeks. Even after 2 weeks to a month, they should remember that rule. So you should not continuously see them going into the jar of treats that you have and getting a treat and them turning around and saying, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I finished my dinner. If you have taken the time to explain to them the rule that you have for them and you've taken the time to write it down and you've even shown them where that rule is on the board, then there's no way that they're not going to remember that rule. They just don't want to do it, right? If your child has good understanding, there's nothing wrong with them as far as their cognitive functions, right? They're able to understand clearly, then they are just doing what they want to do because they want what they want. So you can't just allow them to do that, even though it may seem so small, even though it may seem, oh, well, they just want a snack, so I'm just going to let them get a snack. No, is that what you said? Did you say that they can have a treat whenever they feel like it? Or did you even tell them that they can have a treat every day if they just finish their dinner? No, you said they first had to wash their dish, clean up the area where they had sat to eat dinner, and then they have to come and ask you if they can have a treat that day. And so it's so important for us not to talk ourselves out of bringing discipline on our children because they're not going to learn. And then we're also teaching them how to manipulate us. And then they turn around and begin to learn how to manipulate, right? Which is really dangerous, especially if you grow into an adult that is very manipulative, right? So we have to remember this. We can't allow our children to just tell us anything and we believe it. But if we set any kind of rule for our child to follow and they're continuously breaking that rule, then we can't allow them to just continue doing that. There's no way that they're going to learn how to respect you. There's no way that you're going to begin to gain back the control that you've lost as the leader within that home. So that's why I want you to understand that withholding correction and discipline teaches your child to become more defiant and disrespectful to authority. When we take the time to teach and correct our children, right, and instruct our children, all of these things, we are teaching them how to be respectful to authorities in their lives. And this is going to help our children with even how they conduct themselves not only within the household, but outside of the household. Because they understand my mother or my father or my guardian is not going to tolerate me misbehaving at school. That's not even something that they'll want to do. They won't want to talk back to the teacher. You won't find them getting in trouble for fighting the teacher or anything like that because they respect authority because you've taught them how. You've taught them how to gain respect for authorities because you know your role as a parent and you operate in that role confidently, right? So, parents, thank you for allowing me to train you. I had such a good time today. I know that if you were taking your notes, that you were able to get a lot of helpful techniques and strategies that will help you gain back your confidence as you operate within your parenting role. Reach out to me and let me know your progress in your journey, especially dealing with this issue of gaining back your confidence. Remember to take some time and fill out the form that I've left for you in the description box below. Just click on that link, or you can copy and paste it and open it up. I really appreciate your feedback. Bye, parents.